What's up, everybody? Welcome to the final round. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today I'm going to be breaking down the UFC 318 pay-per-view card happening this weekend, July 19th, and it is the trilogy fight between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, and it is for the BMF title. It is Dustin Poirier's final fight, the last dance. Last dance, wow. It's going to be sad. A lot of grown men shedding a few tears on Saturday night. It's gonna be a sad night. It's gonna be a great fight, but ultimately very sad. And also, I hope you guys enjoyed the little intro video right before this that I made. It's nothing great, but first little intro just to introduce us, kind of. But yeah, let's get onto this card because pretty decent card. Could have been stacked better. Take away a couple fights. This is a fight night card, but yeah, get into it. First fight of the night, we have Carly Judas versus Nicole Cagliari. Cali Carly is definitely the better boxer and is going to want to keep this fight standing. And if she does keep this fight standing, she is a lot taller. As you see, she has 4 inches on height on Cagliari. So if she keeps this standing and keeps that distance, I think she's going to be able to get this fight by decision. But Cagliari is you know, pretty dangerous. She is coming off of that loss to what's it? Ernesta Caracchia. That was awful. But she's a very dangerous type of fighter, and I think if she can push Carly against the fence with the pressure and get a hold of her and get her to the ground, she will end up taking this fight by submission. So in a woman's fight, um, you don't really see this happen too often, but I'm honestly going to choose the dog to win in this fight. I'm going to choose Cagliari. She is at a disadvantage reach and height wise, but even if she can get close and get a hold of Carly, I think she gets this to the ground. And if she can't submit her, it's going to be a split decision because that's how women's fights go. So my pick is Cagliari. Moving on, we've got Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVeigh. We broke down Jackson McVeigh at UFC 317. He was supposed to fight the man who hit it in a dog crate, Sajidis Dumas. That fight got canceled because Dumas, or should I say Dumbass, couldn't get his ankle monitor off in time. So they scrapped that, brought in another guy. That guy came in 10 pounds overweight. They cut him, and then they scrapped the fight. And now Jackson is here on the UFC 318 3 weeks later. And it does suck for him because he did cut the weight for his last fight. And he made the weight, I think. So and he's coming at a disadvantage with Bruno Ferreira because while he is a lot taller and has more reach, similar to the last fight, Bruno Ferreira more experienced in the UFC, and honestly, from what I've seen from Jackson, he's more of a grappling type of fighter, and he doesn't have the most hardest punches. And Bruno, as we've seen, carries power in his hands. He knocked out RoboCop in his short notice debut, knocked out a couple fighters, submitted a couple fighters. So I think Bruno Ferreira ends up winning this fight by TKO within the first 2 rounds. I think it's just too soon for Jackson McVeigh. And I think Jackson can win, but against a guy like Bruno, I think it's just a terrible, terrible matchup for him. But it's a fight. We'll see. But my pick is Bruno Ferreira. Moving on, we've got Ryan Spann versus Lucas Bresky. We're going to pick Ryan Spann to win this fight. Lucas Bresky, not really anything good at in the UFC. Has no real notable wins. His last win did come to Walter Walker, which has, you know, sorry, cat's going crazy. Has aged well, considering Walter Walker has now gone 3 heel hooks in a row. But other than that, he's lost all his fights in the UFC by knockout and by decision. Um, and honestly, I think as we see, I don't think his chin is going to be able to hold up. And even though Ryan Spann isn't the best type of fighter, and based off his last fight against Waldo, he kind of looks like just a fat heavyweight or a fat light heavyweight who just doesn't want to cut the weight anymore. So even even with that, his striking is worldly better than Breshki, and I think he carries more of a punch than Breshki. So I think Ryan Spann is going to be able to land his shots within the first 2 rounds, and Breshki is too slow to react. So he's just going to get caught by the shots and get put down. I think in the second round. So my pick is Ryan Spann by second round knockout. And then moving on, we have Jimmy Crute versus Marcin Prachnio. This fight 100% should not be on a pay-per-view card. This fight and the last fight both deserve to be on a Apex Fight Night card because that's how shit they both are. But Jimmy Crute, who hasn't won a fight since 2020, taking on Marcin Prachnio, who is, you know, hot and cold in his UFC career. Win loss. Coming off that loss by arm triangle to Modestas Spakakis, and back at UFC 304. But he looked decent in the fight. He did throw that, high kick, you know, in close and it landed flush. So he comes from a kickboxer background. He is the better striker. Um, Jimmy Crute, we, what can I say about Jimmy Crute? He has a weird last couple of fights. Let's look at his record. Right, he lost to. This is where all went downhill. He was doing good. He had knocked out Modestas Bukauskas October 17th, 2020. Then he had that doctor stoppage to Anthony Smith at 261, where he got hit in the peroneal nerve and his foot fell asleep. And they didn't want to let him continue. After that, got knocked out by Jamal Hill. After that, went to a draw with Alonzo Menifield and like decided, oh fuck this. No, he draws Menifield, they rematch, and then lost to Alonzo Menifield, and then decided, fuck this, I'm going to retire. Retired for 2 years, less than 2 years, and then came back and drawed against Rodolfo Bellato. Herpy man, Rodolfo Bellato. So honestly, Jimmy Crute can lay on top of Marcin and just smother him and use his size, I think, to hold Marcin down and get the win. But honestly, I'm going to go with the dog, and I'm going to say Marcin Prachnio finds a way to win this fight because Jimmy Crute might be one of the dumbest fighters and just can't seem to win a fight because he has low fight IQ. And yeah, I'm not going to trust somebody like that. I'm going to pick Marcin Prachnio, but it's not a confident pick because Prachnio, if you look at his record, win loss, win loss, win loss, he is due for a win now. So we'll see. But moving on, we've got Adam Fugit versus Islam Dulatov. I'm going to pick Islam Dulatov to win this fight. This is Islam's debut. He's coming off his Contender Series fight where he landed that nasty elbow on Benedito Antunes and knocked him out within the first round. Um, and that's the type of fighter he's been seen to be. He likes to push a pace on his opponents and just you know unleash what is it like unleash a lot of strikes and just try and get him out of there as early as can be. And Adam Fugit, you know, not the best type of fighters. Lost to Michael Morales, Michael Lott. He's beaten some guys, not the best type of guys, coming off that split decision to Josh Quinlan. Um, but I don't know. He hasn't just shown in the UFC that he's really UFC level, and it's a lot saying that considering Islam hasn't proven himself either yet. But you know, Adam is what is he? Adam is 36 years old right now, and Islam. Let's see how old Islam is. Islam's 26. So we have a 10-year age difference right now. So I think Islam's just going to come in here as good and as durable as Adam can be. I think within the first 2 rounds, Islam is actually going to take him out. And I think it's going to look nasty. And it's going to be a good start to Islam's career. So I got Islam by knockout within the first 2 rounds. And moving on to the next fight, we've got Ateba Gauthier versus Robert Valentine. I'm going to pick Ateba Gautier. I really like what Ateba showed in his last fight. He was very patient. He has the power, and he can hurt his opponent. And when he hurt his opponent, he didn't rush, try and blitz and just try and get him out of here as soon as possible. He was patient. He picked his shots and he found his mark, and he got his opponent out of there. Let me see, what was it, or who was it? There was some. It was a typical Mexican durable guy in every division. So Jose Medina knocked him out within. It was in the first round. Oh God, he did so much damage on him in the first round. It made me think it went longer. But no, he looked good. He finishes a lot, most all of his fights. Um, or let me see. It looks like all of his fights. He has one loss by split decision. Um, but he's taking on Robert Valentine, coming off his not contender, coming off the Ultimate Fighter where he didn't win. All right, he did not win. He lost to Ryan Loder. Um, but and then he came in, lost to Torres Finney, where he just got held against the cage and couldn't get off because Torres is just fucking huge. But it was insanely boring. And Robert's kind of a crazy, chaotic striker and likes to, finish his opponents. But I think his chaotic type of style is going to, work against him in this fight against a guy who is, even though he's had what one fight in the UFC so far, right? Yeah, he's had one fight in the UFC so far. I'm going to pick a Teba Gautier. I think this is gonna look nasty. I think I'm gonna pick a later round. I think a third round finish. I think Robert Valentine is more durable enough to survive later, and I think his style will, you know, help him a little bit. He will land a shot, but I think Teva will just push the pressure on him and wilt him, and then in the third round, I think he actually does knock Robert Valentine out. So yeah, we'll see. Moving on, we have Francisco Prado versus Nikolai Valentingov. Um, Francisco definitely not a welterweight, should not be at welterweight. Um, he could make 155 if he got rid of some of that chin of his because he's just a blockhead. Um, but taking on Nikolai Valentinov, who is coming off that loss to Austin Vanderford, where he got, you know, it was a questionable stoppage, but not too questionable by Austin Vanderford. And right after he pushed on Austin and they had to separate him. So I want to pick Francisco to win this fight because he's been in the UFC longer. He's had more fights. Doesn't have the best wins. Osman Azaitar is his only win actually. And he's lost to Jamie Malarkey. Jamie Malarkey, come on. Come on, dude. As soon as I saw that, that just changed it. Okay, I'm picking Nikolai Baratingov to win this fight. You lose a decision to Jamie Malarkey. Like, I get it, man. You're young. You're 23 years old. You're still learning. Jamie Malarkey's a bum. He's a bum. He get finished by everyone now. God. I'm gonna pick Nikolai Baratinov. I just think Francisco is way too undersized to be a welterweight man. You know, he and I think he's just too big. I mean, Nikolai isn't the best fighter, coming off of two losses. Lost to Danny Barlow, which that fight actually ages worse now too, because if Danny Barlow got knocked out by Sam Patterson, fuck, fuck it. I'm picking Francisco Prado. Whatever. Nikolai lost to Danny Barlow and Austin Vanderford. That's a worse loss than who Francisco was lost to, even though Jamie Larky's on there. So I'm gonna pick Francisco Prado just based off of who he's lost to, and he's been in the UFC longer. So yeah, that's my pick. And moving on to the not even the features fight on the prelims. It's crazy, or even on the main card. We got Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen, a fight that's got real beef. This fight was supposed to happen a while ago. Marvin had to pull out, and then Chris Curtis stepped in, I believe. Um, Very interesting fight. Honestly, both guys at a weird point in their career. Brendan kind of was seen as a prospect coming up, and now he's coming off of two losses, and they're two losses where he was having success in that fight, but he just shows a lack of fight IQ and just makes the dumbest decisions I've ever seen. Like his last loss against Fluffy Hernandez, start of the fight, his striking looks crisp. It looks nasty. It looks 10 times better than Fluffy's. What does he do? Initiates a clinch, which then leads to a takedown, which is Fluffy's wheelhouse. He tries to. It's the same thing with Imamov. He was doing better in the striking with Imamov, went to grappling, and then it cost him. And that annoys me because I think he's a better fighter at this point in their careers than Marvin Vettori, but his lack of fight IQ just makes me not want to pick him because is he going to make some stupid decision in that fight that costs him? Like Marvin, most durable guy ever now that Max has been KO'd. Um, that Jared Cannonier fight really rings true. But he hasn't been the most active fighter. He is coming off a loss this year to Ronald Dolidze. But before that, his last fight was, I think, it was the Jared Cannonier fight, and that was 2023. 2 years off, man. That's a long time. And yeah, he did take a lot of punishment in the Jared Cannonier fight, but man, that's a long time off. My initial pick is Brendan Allen just because he's younger, he's a better fighter, has had more success as of late. But I don't like Brendan Allen at all. All right, and something tells me Marvin may get this. He's coming into this fight high on emotions. His brother just recently passed, so he is trying to fight for his brother and get the win. So I want to pick Marvin just because I don't like Brendan Allen, but I do think Brendan Allen does get the win as long as he doesn't act like a fucking idiot. So yeah, Brendan Allen's my pick. And moving on to the featured prelim of the night, we have Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira, a new prospect on my prospect list. Vinicius Oliveira. I'm gonna pick Vinicius to win this fight, 100%. I think he wins this fight either by decision or knockout. Kyler, not really the prospect we thought he was gonna be. He got that win over Pedro Munoz, which has not aged well because I mean Pedro hasn't looked too good recently, and he lost to Rob Font his last fight out, and I mean you can, I don't remember that fight to be honest, but he could have won that fight, and I think he made some stupid decision in that fight. But he is a decent fighter. He has some good wins, but I think like he's what 30 years old, he's still young, still learning, but he doesn't have enough pop in his shots, man, for a guy like Vinicius, who's coming off of two wins to, while there are decisions, to Ricky Simone and Saeed Nurmagomedov, which he did hurt, and I think almost finished Saeed in that fight, like the third round. He has better wins than Kyler, and I think this is, even though Kyler's good, I think this is a tailor matchup for Vinicius. I think Vinicius goes in there, puts the pressure and puts the pace on Kyler, and just, I think he's going to gas Kyler. And if he does get a finish, I think it's in the later round. I think it's in the third round. But I think Vinicius will take this fight by decision. I think he's young. I think he's 28 years old. 29, he's 29. And I think he has a lot of potential in this bantamweight division. So I'm going to pick Vinicius Oliveira to get the win. Then we move on to the main card. We have Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. I'm going to pick Daniel Zellhuber to win this fight. Michael Johnson, I call him the coin flip because he can beat the best fighters on any given night, but he also can lose to the worst fighters on any given night. Notable has a knockout win over Dustin Poirier, has a win over Tony Ferguson, has lost to people like you know Josh Emmett, lost to people like Oliver Azaitar. So yeah, they don't have the best wins. Um, I think this is a I think the UFC are making this matchup because they want to get Daniel Hoover back into the win column. And he's coming off that loss to Esteban Ribovic, which he almost got finished in that third round, but his durability and his you know movement allowed him to survive. And I think the UFC still sees him as a hot prospect that can do some good things in this division. And I think if he goes in there and he finishes a guy like Michael Johnson, I think it catapults him back into not stardom because he wasn't a star, but for the hardcore fans, another a prospect that the lightweight division kind of needs, in my opinion because there's not a lot of hot prospects coming up in the lightweight division. We have a lot of guys at the top retiring soon, so we need a lot more contenders coming in. So I think Daniel Hoover, I think his height, his range is just gonna be too much for Michael Johnson, and he's gonna honestly finish Michael Johnson. I think in the second round. So my pick is Daniel Hoover by second round knockout. And moving on to Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. It's a hard one, man. I love Pitbull. I want Pitbull to get that UFC win, man. He deserves it. But his first fight against Yair was a terrible matchup. Yair is fucking a massive featherweight, and Pitbull honestly is undersized for a featherweight. And he's coming against a guy who has a very similar size to him, but while they are similar in heights, they have a very different reach. And honestly, I think Dan Ige is going to be I see this fight going two ways. I see Dan Ige beating him by decision, just outworking him, or I see Pitbull becoming the first man to finish Ige. And if he becomes the first man to finish Ige, then wow, even at his age, wow, Pitbull still got it. But I think he's just too undersized. I think at 38 years old, I think he's too old. And against a guy like Ige, who's been in there against the best of the best for a long time, um, I think it's just gonna be too much. And I think Dan Ige is just gonna be able to outwork him in this fight. So my pick, while I do want Pitbull, I think Ige ends up taking this fight and probably after this fight gets a top 10 opponent, which he probably deserves at this point. Yeah. And then moving on, we have the featured fight of the night. We have Kevin Holland versus D Rod. Uh, I'm going to pick Kevin Holland in this fight. They're back at 170s again. And I think Kevin at 170 actually takes shit seriously because he has to actually cut 15 extra pounds to make the weight, and that makes him more serious. And you saw it in his last fight against Vicente Luque, which me and my co-host Jake were there at 316 watching it, and honestly, going to the fight and how they were looking, building up like the face-offs, I was like, Vicente looks down, dude. Vicente looks game. I think Vicente's gonna get it. No, dude. Kevin went in there and shut Vicente out. Vicente couldn't do anything, man. Kevin just looked like on his game, on his level, and I think Kevin does the same thing in this fight. Um, D-Rod coming off that good knockout win over Santiago Ponzinibbio, where Santiago was targeting to win that fight. And then D-Rod landed this nice punch in the third round, and Santiago is not known for recovering well after being rocked. But yet before that, he's coming off of that split decision went to Alex Morono. Like, dude, split decision against Morono. Morono, I'm very biased. Is a fucking can. He's awful. All right, Morono has done nothing good in this fucking business. And you go to the split. You should be finishing Morono. All right, in the first round. Morono's ass, and he went to the split decision with that. And before that, lost to Kelvin Gastelum. Before that, lost to Ian McGarry. Before that, lost to Neil Magny. So I'm gonna pick Kevin Holland in this fight. I think he's just gonna be too crisp, too sharp, And I think his power is just gonna put D-Rod down at some point in this fight, and then he's gonna lock up a Darce choke and submit D-Rod at some point in this fight. So yeah, my pick is Kevin Holland by submission. And then moving on to the co-main event of the evening, a rebooking of the fight from week 17. We have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. And this is a very interesting fight because my initial lean is Roman Kopylov because he is the better kickboxer. If he is allowed, he's going to stand at distance and pick his shots. Jab, jab, cross, land his kicks on Costa. But after the fight against Strickland, Costa was like, I'm gonna bring back the Costa of old. And if he does bring back the Costa of old, and from what I've been seeing in his training videos, he is taking this seriously and he is trying to get back that aggressiveness that he lost after he lost against Izzy. That Izzy loss fucked him up badly, and he was never the same since. And against the against Robert Whitaker, he did have some good moments. He hurt Rob at the end of the first round with a spinning wheel kick, and I was like, "Holy shit, Paulo Costa is about to finish Robert Whitaker." And then after that fight, it was like, "Damn, Paulo still got it." But then going to the Strickland fight, is like he couldn't get anything going because Strickland's boring style, shut him down. So it's hard to pick Costa, but because he hasn't done anything notable as of recent, other than a win over an aged Luke Rockhold. So my initial lean is going to be Roman Kopylov because I think if he's just going to be able to pick him apart at distance and just get a win. I don't think he finishes Paulo. I think Paulo is far too durable to be finished. Um, but if Paulo brings back the Paulo of old, right, we're going to see we're going to see him put Roman Kopylov out, in my opinion. If we see the Paulo Costa of old, because you remember the body kicks he was ripping against Marvin Vettori in the Apex. Just the sound of it was like a gunshot to the body. It was nasty. Like he's not a big power puncher. He's a very accumulation of hard shots. And if he does do that, he brings back that type of style where he just pushes forward, pushes the pace. Because I don't think he gets finished. I think he can wilt Roman Kopylov and finish him if he pushes him against the fence. But it's a hard thing to do after not being able to do it in your last 5 fights. It's hard to bring back that old type of guy. But if he's gonna do it, now's the time. And honestly, I think he does it. I think we see Paulo Costa look good at the press conference. I think we see Paulo Costa look good on fight night. I think Paulo Costa wins this fight by close decision. I think this fight is a split decision. And I was about to say fight of the night, but I'm not gonna say that just because. So I'm gonna pick Paulo Costa, but Roman Kopylov probably will win. But I'm picking Costa. And then moving on to the main event. We're here. We have the third and final bout between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. Max Holloway, no, Dustin Poirier was Max Holloway's first fight in the UFC, and now Max Holloway is Dustin Poirier's last fight in the UFC. It's storybook, it's poetic. You couldn't write something else like this. These guys have been intertwined throughout the whole career. And then their second fight in 2019 in Atlanta at 236, I believe it was an amazing fight, dude. And you can look at those two fights and like Dustin beat him both times and say Dustin gonna beat him this time. But those are two completely different fights. These guys are two completely different fighters now. They're not the same as they were back in 2019. And it's very different because they were both, in their primes in 2019 and now they're both, right near the back end of their careers. Dustin definitely, last fight, Max Holloway recently said 3, 4 fights left. So we gotta appreciate these guys while we have them because these two, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Volk, all these type of guys we kind of grew up watching. They're done, dude. They're almost done, and it's sad. But let's break down this fight, man. It's gonna be a great fight. I'm gonna shed. I will be. Me and my buddies will be shedding tears for Dustin Poirier. We're hoping for a good fight and a storybook send off. So, yeah. Um, both guys coming off a loss. Ilya Topuria knocked out Max Holloway in his last fight, becoming the first man to knock Max out. And then Dustin Poirier coming off that loss to Islam Makhachev, where he pushed Islam to the limit and then got put to sleep with a Dutch choke in the fifth round. Um, yeah, it's an interesting fight. I want to pick Dustin in this fight because it's his last fight, his retirement fight. He deserves, get that BMF title, ride off into the sunset off a win. He's in his home state, in his home. You know, it's just it's you couldn't write it better if Dustin wins this fight. And he won the first fight against Max by submission and the second fight by decision. So it would make it perfect if Dustin wins this fight by KO. And that's what's interesting about this fight because Max, for the first time ever, is coming off of a KO loss. And usually with these type of fighters who rely on their durability and their chin for a good majority of their career, once that chin eventually gives and they eventually do get finished, sometimes it's like the opening of a dam. You can't close it back up. You're not the same. And yeah, it's different. Like when Max put out Justin going to the physio fight, it was like first time Justin's been put out cold in his career. Is he gonna be the same? And he went into that fight the same guy, still fought the same, all that stuff. So it didn't affect him. Is it gonna affect a guy like Max? My instinct says no because of what Max's mentality is. I don't think that affects him. I think he still tries to use his durability, but Max struggles with guys who can box with him back. In his first two fights with Dustin, Ilya Topuria, Conor McGregor, his fights with Volk, guys who can box back, he struggles with. And yeah, Justin Gaethje is a really good striker, but he's not a good, as good of a boxer as Ilya or Dustin is, and that's the difference. And Max at 155 does carry some power and is more healthier and a much better fighter than he was at 45. But it's hard, man, because just their styles. Dustin can box backs with Max and land his shots, and we've seen Max did get dropped by Justin in their fight, and Dustin, if it wasn't for that fence or that cage, Max Holloway would have been dropped for the first time against their second fight against Dustin, but he got saved by the fence. And Dustin does carry that power, so I'm going to pick Dustin Poirier to win this fight. It pains me because I don't want to see Max lose. He just lost, dude. He needs a win, but at the same time, I don't want Dustin Poirier. This is the type of fight where you don't want either guys to, lose. You want both guys to win, but this is the fight game. That can't happen. I think Dustin Poirier does get the win in his send-off fight, his retirement fight. I think he retires that BMF belt. I think that belt fucking is a curse. All right, every fighter who's won it gets brutally KO'd in their next fight. So yeah, I think Dustin Poirier gets a hard fought 5 round decision against Max Holloway. This lands the more power shots and gets that final send off, man. And it'll be a good fight. I'll be excited for it. So it's just weird, man. Dustin, after 15 years in the UFC, Dustin Poirier is retired, man. I didn't watch when he first debuted because I was like 10 years old. But right when around the time he was fighting McGregor, that's when I started watching, and I've watched him since then. It's just like he's grown, man. Watching him grow as a fighter up into the guy he is now, and now retiring. It's sad, man. It's emotional to see him go, but he's doing it on his own terms. It's good to see him retiring himself instead of the sport retiring him. and he's still kind of in his prime. He's only 36 years old, so he's still, and in that Islam fight, he looked damn good. So it's gonna be a good fight, and I think that's where I get it. So yeah. And one last thing I'll say about this is that this is the type of fight that there's no drama, all right? There's no PEDs, there's no beating the wife, there's no, you know, building bullshit, all right? It's two fighters who live to deliver violence for the fans, and that's what builds this fight, and that's what fans are excited for it, all right? So yeah, it's gonna be a great card. Um, look forward to all the videos I'm going to be posting in the future to break down the next couple of fight cards. Next week, we have a great fight night card in Abu Dhabi, Whitaker versus De Ritter. I'm very excited for that card. Um, and then we have Albaze versus Tara, Dulce versus Hernandez, Duplessis, Chimaev. That'll be a great fight. Walker versus John. Walker's going down. MMA versus Bralo, and then Lopez versus Silva. All going to be great fight cards. And also pay attention to tomorrow. Me and Jake are going to be doing our breakdown video together for this cards. So pay attention to that. We might do it live. We might do pre-recorded. We haven't decided yet, but we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. Drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Anything is appreciated. Um, I'm just glad you guys are watching. I'm glad I get to talk about fights because that's all I like to do is talk about fights. And a lot of people get sick of me talking about fights. So it's nice to have somewhere to talk about it to people who might shit on me, but it is what it is. I like talking about it. So thank you all for watching. Toodle pip. See ya.